A very warm welcome, Saralyn, and it's a privilege to have you amidst us. And we conduct these author connects periodically as part of a book club that I run here in Bangalore, India. And some of us have just been intrigued by the world of books and the creative processes that different authors follow to give their stories a
Thank
voice.
you. Thank you. I'm looking forward to it.
Me too. I know that you are somewhere in the central time zone. Which part of the US are you connecting from today?
I am in Texas.
In Texas. Okay,
Yeah,
great.
it's lovely here in Texas. It's morning and I know it's night there.
Yes, it's about 8:45 in the night, and I've finished my dinner and everything, so it's a good time to chat.
Great.
Super. So let me first start by congratulating you on the release of your latest book called Murder Outside the Box. I believe it released in January this year
Yeah.
and is the fourth book in the Detective Parrott series of mystery books that you've written.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
a very big congratulations. Please tell us how that is going and what's the experience been like so far.
Well, this is the fourth book and it's getting great reviews and I have a lot of Detective Parrott fans who
Uh-huh.
follow him. They love him probably more than they love me. Um, and he has really evolved over the series, and I've learned something really important from
Hmm.
writing this series, and that is that it's just fiction is exactly like real life. So
Okay.
when you meet a character, it doesn't matter whether you meet him in his first case or if you meet him in his fourth case. You meet people in life. You know, you might meet someone when they're 20 years old or 30 years old or 40 years old, and you catch up on their background as you go along. But you can get on their bus, so to speak, at any spot and really enjoy knowing them. And that's what's happened with this series. So sometimes people read the series from the very beginning, which is Murder in the 1%. And sometimes they just jump in with the latest book and then they go back and
Okay.
read the others like a prequel. So it's really fun. And as Parrot has evolved, my relationship with him has evolved also. And he's very, very real to me. When I'm writing, even before I'm writing, he whispers in my ear and he tells me what he wants, you know, what he wants to do. And all I do is just write it down. So he's really an important person to me. And he has his struggles and you know his demons that he has to sort out as he goes through life.
Yeah.
And his personal escapades and his professional escapades often intertwine. So
Uh,
so we're seeing him as a detective, but we're also seeing him as a man.
sure, sure. You make it sound very simple when you say that he whispers in your ears and tells you what to write and you simply write it. I'm sure it's a lot more complicated than that.
It really isn't. It really is. It's I think writing is knowing your characters. And
Yeah.
once you know your characters, you know how they would behave in any situation. You know what they would say and do and how they would interact with others, and you kind of know their soul. And so it's very easy, really, once you have a concept of what the case is. It just my character just takes me through it. This is I don't know if you can see this. This is Parrot. He's with me all the time.
Great. This is so amazing. If I may ask, unlike real life, you don't have so many examples of murders happening and gruesome incidents happening. So I know while you're saying that a part of your books is reflective of the character Parrot is and inspirations from real life around. How does a plot like this come together in your mind and what inspires that process?
Well, the very first book, Murder in the 1%, um, I, I had the idea up for it when I went to a birthday party in Brandywine Valley. And Brandywine Valley is as much a character as Detective Parrott is, because it's an area of Pennsylvania in the United States that where very, very rich people, very powerful people live in a very rustic, rural, peaceful, serene community. It's just beautiful. And it's also a colony for artists,
Sure.
famous artists. Andrew Wyeth and his family live there and paint there. And supposedly the light to paint by is perfect in Brandywine Valley. So artists congregate there, whether they live there or they just come there to paint. People are horse equestrians. They own horses, and these are horse farms out there. And it's just so completely serene. There's just like, you can't imagine that there's a care in the world. There's birds flying overhead, and it's just so quiet of a life. And I was there for this birthday party, and it was a weekend, you know, a retreat for the weekend at this mansion. And all of the guests for the party were staying at the mansion for the whole weekend. And I turned to this woman who was a fellow guest on Saturday night after the big dinner that we had. And I said, you know, this would be a great setting for a murder mystery. And she looked at me like I was crazy. You know, here I am at the party. But it reminded me of a lot of Agatha Christie mysteries,
Yes.
that are locked room mysteries where nobody comes in or leaves, but somebody turns up dead. So all the guests at the party are the suspects. So the woman that I said that to after she fell off her chair, I said to her, but one of us would have to die and one of us would have to be a killer. And she said, you write that book and I will give you a book launch party. So I filed that away in my head because I always wanted to write books, and I really never had time because I was an educator and very, very, very busy in that career. But I always had all these ideas for books that I was going to write when I had time. So I got to a point where I joined a writer's critique group, and I had to give them something to critique. And I thought, what would be the best first book to write? And I thought about that party, and I thought that would be really fun to write. So I started writing the story, and I was so focused on the people at the party and who was going to be the victim and who was going to be the murderer and how this was going to play out and what the motives would be, who the suspects would be, what the red herrings would be. And I had all this planned out, but I did not have the detective. So I'm like 20% into writing this book, and now the person has died, and I need a police detective. So here comes Parrott into my mind, fully formed, and he starts behaving. You know, he starts investigating, and soon I realized this is your main character. This is, you know, I hadn't even thought of him. And here he is, he's the main character. So later I had to go back and revise the beginning of the book so that I had Parrott at the beginning.
Sure.
So all focus was on him. But he was kind of an accidental character. And when that book came out, people were raving about the book, and they weren't raving about the people at the party. They were raving about Parrott. And they were saying, we need more of Parrott. We need more people like Parrott. We need more detectives like Parrott. We need more young men like Parrott. So can you write more books with Parrott? And I was like, sure, I can do that. And so that was how Parrott came into my head and into my life and into all of my readers' lives. And since that time, I mean, I'm completely fascinated by him. But it all happened by accident, and sometimes that's how real life is too.
Yes.
You know, you take a certain turn that you didn't plan, and that turn leads you to something really incredible. And and then that next thing leads you to something else. So that was how Parrott evolved.
Superb. This is such an interesting story, and I mean, I wonder if it is how all the super detectives are born. I think all of us have at some point of time read an Agatha Christie book or two, or sometimes 50. Uh, but I think Agatha Christie, one thing that is very prominent, it stands out, whether it is Miss Marple or whether it is Hercule Poirot, or it is Tommy and Tuppence, or whichever detective she is dealing with at a certain time in the book series. Is again, I think there is a personality to the detective and there's a background story, and then that keeps on evolving as the books uh, the series progresses. And I heard you also talk about a similar journey that Parrott takes in your books. So tell us a little bit about this detective. What kind of a person is this, and what kind of quirky personality traits? I'm sure there are some. So do introduce us a little bit to your best friend.
Okay. Well, he couldn't be more different from me. Because he's male, he's African American, he's young, he's 26 years old in the first book. He was raised in a single parent home. His father passed away when he was very young, and his mother raised him in a underprivileged neighborhood. He got a football scholarship to Syracuse University, and he was a big football star there. And he met the love of his life on campus. She was also a scholarship student from the inner city. And so they became engaged. And after college, he he became a police officer and a detective. And she joined the Navy,
Oh,
and she became one of the very first female Navy SEALs. And she was deployed to Afghanistan. She had a couple of tours of duty in Afghanistan. And when Murder in the 1% starts, they are separated because she's in Afghanistan, he's in Pennsylvania. And he gets this job. What's really ironic about him is he gets this job in a small, rural, uh, rich, very, very rich community, all white, privileged, powerful. You know, a lot of these people work for the government, or one of them was Secretary of the Treasury for the US government. So he is investigating people that are very, very different from him. He is an outsider in this community. And he has feelings about that. You know, he's not really impressed with their wealth. And he's not impressed with some of the things that they do to try to sabotage him. Sometimes they close ranks on him, and they try to keep him away from finding the truth. And he's just determined he's going to find the truth no matter what. He's a very grounded, intelligent, organized young man with a great moral compass. He tries to overcome his prejudices, but he has them. I mean, everybody has some prejudices, and he has them about these people in Brandywine Valley. Over the course of the different cases that he does, he learns a lot about people, and they learn a lot about people from him also. And so there are class issues that are, you know, similarities and differences between classes that are a part of this book, or a part of the series. And so Parrott learns and grows through all of this. And some twists happen not only in the plots of the mysteries, but there are twists that happen in his life as well. When the book starts, when the series starts, he has just lost his cousin. And he and his cousin were both only children of two sisters, and they were very, very close. They were like brothers. And his cousin, whose name was Bo, was killed by police fire, and it was an accident. He just happened to be, it was collateral damage, and he happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. And this is tragic for Parrott,
Yeah.
that he lost his close brother-like person. And so that is part of his, one of the demons that he has, because here he is, a police officer also.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
you know, so he struggles with that, and he misses his fiance, and there are all kinds of ups and downs in his life that we share with him as he grows up.
I was just imagining, and I think slowly a picture started forming in my mind. So I'm sure when I read the books, it will become even more vivid and clear. So, one question I wanted to ask you earlier was, when you were growing up, when you were, probably a child, uh, did you gravitate also towards mysteries and thrillers at that time naturally, or did this love for this genre evolve a little later in your life?
No, I always loved mysteries when I was little. I started reading at a very young age, and I was a voracious reader. And my mother could not keep me in books. I mean, I went to the library a lot, and I would take the maximum number of books out, and I would read them immediately and then go get the next maximum number of books. So I was a very big reader, and I'm an eclectic reader. I like everything. I like nonfiction as well as fiction. I teach a class called Literary Tapas, and we read little pieces of fiction and nonfiction and all kinds of genres. So I can't say that I'm only a mystery reader. I love historical fiction, and I love all kinds of books, but mysteries pull me in, and I've examined why over the years, and I think it's because a mystery poses an intellectual puzzle.
Yes.
So there is that intellectual piece to it, that you want to figure it out. You want to think through. You want to read carefully and not miss any clues. And you want to be with the author. You're on the same path as the author as you're reading the book. You're together following that same path. And that is what I really love the best. And in addition to it being an intellectual puzzle, it's also an emotional puzzle, because here you're trying to figure out human behavior and what
Yes.
motivates someone to do something like a crime. And do bad things happen to good people? Which we know in life, yes, they do. And then how do people handle those things? How do they overcome the obstacles in their lives? And no other genre really grabs you like that and teaches you those kind of important lessons. I'm a person who really hates violence. I can't stand the sight of blood. That's why I couldn't become a doctor, because I can't, I faint if I see blood. So people have asked me, why does somebody, a nice lady like you, write mysteries that have murders in them? And the answer is because the book is not really about the murder. The book
Yes.
is about finding the truth and restoring order. It's problem solving. It's decision making. It's a challenge to be overcome. And I love that. The challenge is all, I'm all in for the challenge. And that's the appeal. Even when I was a child, that was what I loved about it.
Very interesting. And as you grew older and you got into your profession as an educator, I know that you've been doing that for a while. Just help me understand how that part of your life has prepared you uh, to becoming uh, the author or the writer that you are. Because you started writing, as you said, after you'd been teaching for a while. So help me understand that journey a little bit further into your life.
Well, first of all, I think that teaching and learning is a lot like writing and reading. They go hand in hand. So a writer is a little bit like a teacher, because your story is teaching something.
Mhm.
You're presenting something, you're presenting a lesson and teaching it. So
Right.
that there's that structural piece. that is a similarity. I always wanted to be a writer, and my parents said, no, that's not a real job. So my parents said, you have to you can go into medicine, you can go into education, whichever you want. And medicine, I told you, I faint when I see blood. So it was like, okay, I'll go into education. And I loved it. I really loved it. And I got to meet and interact with and love people of all sorts, people of means, people of no means, people of good moral background, and people of bad moral background. So I have met and known thousands and thousands of people over my career as an educator. And all of those people have stories. Everybody has a story. And they don't have just one story, they have lots and lots of stories. So over the years, I have observed human nature, and I've observed what makes people behave in certain ways. And that has really informed my writing. So I feel that I'm a much more accomplished writer now than I would have been if I hadn't had that education background. And something that sort of substantiates that is I used to teach creative writing to high school students. And I have some high school students who are writers, that they earn their living as a writer, and I'm very, very proud of them. But when they were in high school, their biggest problem to writing was that they couldn't figure out what to write about, because in their experience in life, they didn't have that much interesting matter to convey.
Right. Right.
And they were like, I don't know. I just can't think of anything. And so I sent them to do some research. You know, they all wrote for me, and they all wrote well, but they struggled with that piece of what to write about. So fast forward to now, this is many years later, and I'm teaching adults. I'm teaching seniors at the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute. There are many of them throughout the United States. And so my students are aged 55 and older. And now my students in creative writing have too much to write about. They, you know, they have so many rich life experiences that they can't choose just one. You know, they're like, I don't know which story to tell first. And I sort of fall in that category too, because I've been collecting stories for a long, long time.
It makes me feel good about growing older. So as someone who also uh, writes and loves to tell stories, I think this is a good way to look at the progression of my storytelling.
Yes. And there are wonderful things as you mature. Your writing matures also. And there are very important things that writing does for the writer, because it makes your brain work better. It makes your heart work better. It makes you a more compassionate person in your real life. And so I highly recommend it to people who are, you know, growing up, you know, growing older and gathering experience, because I think it makes you a much more enriched, it gives you a more enriched life.
Tell me a little bit about your family. How do they support you, and how do they cope up with your quirks, perhaps during the time when you're writing, when you're reading? What's the environment like, and do you get into a zone when you're writing and they know not to disturb you, or life goes on as usual during those times?
Well, at this point in my life, the only person that is in my house is my husband. And he has known since he met me that I always wanted to be a writer, and that was a dream deferred for me. So he is extremely supportive of this part of my life, and he makes a lot of sacrifices. I'm sorry, that's my dog in the background. Um, um,
Nana.
he I spend a lot of time writing, and he is alone. He's watching movies or doing something else in the house. He also is my first reader. I call him my alpha reader. So after every chapter, he will read the chapter and he gives me his first reactions to it. And so he helps me in a lot of ways to build the story and to correct early mistakes. He's not, of course, the only reader that sees it before it goes to publication, but
Sure.
he also is my accompaniment to when I go for book events. He comes with me. He helps me carry books. He helps me sell books. He helps me mail books. He is my partner in every sense of the word in this adventure. I also have, well, I had two dogs. We just lost one of the dogs, but the older dog that just passed away, her name was Nana. She was an Old English sheepdog. And my very first book was a children's book in which she was the narrator, and it's called Naughty Nana. And
Ah,
Nana,
that explains the Instagram handle too.
yes. And so she really got this whole career going for me, because she was the naughtiest dog that ever lived. She was just a holy terror. And we were trying to get her energy out so she would be better behaved. So we were taking her for walks, and we live on an island, and there's a seawall, and she kept leaping over the seawall. It was
Wow.
dangerous, and she just did all these wild things. And so we were on one of these walks, and I said to my husband, I think I'm going to write a book about Nana, because there are children that are very incorrigible and mischievous, and they need to learn how to behave just like Nana does. So that was my first book, and that was my first exposure to all things having to do with writing and publishing. And she got me out into audiences, into bookstores, into author talks, and she was the star of the show. The author talk was all about her, and I could just sit and do very little, read the book and watch kids react to her. So when I started writing adult books, one of my friends, who's a fellow author, said, now you're going to have to be in the spotlight without Nana. But Nana really continued to inspire me and to write. I'm in my office right now where I do my writing, and my other dog is here with me, as you heard. And both of them are with me for the whole story. They've got their chins on my ankles, and they're part of it. And there are pets in all of my books. Every one of my books has either a dog. Detective Parrott has a bird, and the rest of the characters have dogs. And so I'm able to create characters based on my little pets too.
Very, very interesting. Coming back to the book that just released, the one in the Parrot series of books, Murder Outside the Box. Do you want to tell the readers a little bit about that book and what new mystery awaits there?
Sure. Murder Outside the Box starts off with an abandoned baby. And I know a lot of people think that babies aren't abandoned anymore, because they used to be abandoned much more during the Depression, like in the 1920s. In literature, there's always abandoned babies back in the day. And you don't hear that much about them anymore. But I did some research and found that there are actually still 22,000 babies in America abandoned every year. That's a lot.
Wow.
That's a lot. And there are safe haven laws where if you take a baby to a fire station, a hospital, or a church, it's not a crime to abandon your baby. But if you don't take it to one of those three places, that is a crime. So now we're in Brandywine Valley, which I've told you is very posh, very luxurious. the homes are gigantic mansions, and the people who live there are multimillionaires. Some of them are billionaires. And a baby is abandoned not at one of those homes, but at a caretaker's cottage on the grounds of one of the homes. So there's a mystery right from the very beginning that who would abandon a baby in this community? And if you were going to abandon it, why wouldn't you abandon it at the rich person's house? Why are you picking the caretaker's cottage? So that's the first thing. And Parrott is called early in the morning to come to the house that there's a baby in a box on the back porch. And so after he does his due diligence to take care of the baby and make sure that she is in good hands, that Child Protective Services will get her and she's going to be checked out at the hospital. Then he goes to look for who abandoned the baby, possibly the mother. So he goes to look, and what he comes upon is a dead body of a woman, a young woman. And it turns out that she has recently given birth. So he thinks that he may have found the mother. He's not positive about that, but he thinks he may have found the mother. So now he has two things to look into. He's got to investigate the abandoned baby, but now he has to investigate the death of this woman. And so this is the basis for his case. And at the same time, there are people in the story who are having babies that they don't want, and people who want babies that they can't have. And so there's that irony, which I've always been intrigued by, that it seems so unfair that babies are given sometimes to the people that don't want them and not given to the people who really do. So that is kind of a motif that runs through the book about babies. At first, I thought of calling this book The Baby Blues, but it has to be a murder. It has to have murder in the title. So I had trouble finding the title, but I think it's the perfect title now. Murder Outside the Box. And a lot of intriguing things happen to Parrott during the time that he is solving this crime. And readers have really responded to that. The reviews are excellent. It's just been out for a month, and we're just getting lots of good feedback. It's a fun book to read. It's complicated, but it's not heavy. It's not overwhelming. It's a fun book.
Sure. No, I am looking forward to reading the book, and let's see which book I start with.
You just hop on the bus wherever
I
you'd
think
like.
hop on the bus. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Saralyn, I think we are coming to the end of the conversation today, and I wanted to probably conclude the questions with if you, based on your life journey experiences, both otherwise and as an author, want to share something with the viewers, whether it is budding readers, budding writers or readers, and any parting thoughts that you have.
Well, if you're at all interested in reading and writing, which I assume every viewer here is, I congratulate you. I applaud you for being in that reading community and writing community. And I don't think you can separate the two. I think if you're a reader who enjoys books, you'll be a writer who enjoys writing books. And what I tell my students, I teach creative writing also, and what I tell my students is, as you write, you must have fun. That's a requirement of the job, because if you have joy as you write your book, then your readers are going to feel that joy. It's going to be communicated in your words, in your similes and metaphors, in your descriptions, in your plot twists. If you're having fun with it, they will too. And it's very, very very gratifying when someone reads your book and gets it. They understand what you're trying to convey in your book. They understand your character. It's extremely rewarding. It's extremely personally gratifying. It's like you have made a friend. You may not live close to this person. Your life circumstances of life may be very different, but you have connected with that reader. They've connected with you, and you are now friends. You sort of know someone's soul when you have understood their book. And so I invite all of you to read my books and connect with me, connect on my website, send me an email, tell me how you liked it, and I have a monthly newsletter if you want to be part of that too. But that's all part of the reading and writing journey. So don't miss opportunities to do that. The writers that you read that you admire, they're real people too, and they enjoy connecting with readers more than anything else. So don't be shy, reach out and be part of the community, because it's just a fabulous world out there.
Very, very beautifully said. And I think uh, the thing that you said about connections and forming a bond between the reader and the writer, and somehow bringing them onto the same linkage chain somehow. It's really beautiful and resonates with me a lot. So thanks for sharing that,
Thank
Saralyn.
you. And now you're a friend too.
Yes, we are. And it's been a real pleasure having you here amidst us and talking about Detective Parrott, about your teaching journey, about your students, your creative writing, your husband, your dogs, and your love for storytelling, most of all. So, thank you so much for taking out the time today. And it's been wonderful chatting with you, and I hope to stay in touch and read your book soon. Thank you, and have a very good day ahead.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, you take care, and until next time, bye bye.
Bye bye.